What's up everyone? Lance Hedrick here, and today we're taking a look at a $60 espresso machine. Is this even capable of making decent coffee? So you hop on, you're like, what do I do? What do I do? And you don't really find anything. Well, this is for you, but also it's for all of you who are like, oh my God, I only got like 60, 70 bucks, but I need some espresso. What can I get? And you're like, is this worth it? Well, this is also for you. So today we're gonna take a look at the SilverCrest SEM B3, 1,000 other letters and names in the name. I don't know why they don't make it more simple, but they don't. Espresso machine. This is made with very poor quality. This weighs next to nothing. It's all plastic panels everywhere you can see. It doesn't come apart easily. In order to get the top off, you have to take all the bottom off, which has like 9 screws. And then when you get inside, it's a lot of cheap plastic parts that if you were to try to move it with like needle nose pliers, they're gonna break, you know what I'm saying? And it's got a little vibratory pump in here mounted. It's got a thermoblock in here, which thermoblocks are great in the sense that they will heat your water up in about 45 seconds, but they're not great in that they don't have much longevity, especially if you're using poor quality water. It can scale up really easily, really quickly, and you have a machine that is just not going to work. And the majority use case of this machine are in homes where they're just using tap water, put it in, go, put it in, go, put it in, go. Depending on where you're located and what your tap water is like, this could go kaput in 6 months. Save up a little bit more and get something that's reliable. Either save up all the way to get something like a DeLonghi Dedica that has a little bit more longevity in it, or go away from electronic machines completely, do something around 100 like the Flare Neo Flex, or get something like Wakeco Pico Presso, and you're not relying on cheap electronics in order for it to survive. But then you don't have milk steaming, and I get that. A lot of these machines are easily depressurized. This one, however, not so much. You would have to replace the basket. In order to use it, you do need this in the bottom, and this is also pressurized. So it causes that kind of faux crema buildup whenever you're using pre-ground coffee. Now I'd recommend taking it off altogether, using a separate basket to get away from this pressurized system and to just get away from that plastic. You can just repurpose that somewhere else. I don't know, figure out a way to repurpose it so you're not just throwing it away. Now this boasts a 20 bar pump, and they're like, oh, it's 20 bar, higher pressure's better. Not necessarily true, but it's also not gonna be the worst thing in the world. There's a lot of theories out there about double compression after you hit, 11, 12 bar, but in reality, this can make you some good espresso. So it's not gonna harm the pump in order to switch out the basket. It's just gonna cause you to need a proper grinder that can dial in. That's why they put these pressurized baskets in here, is most people are either, rocking with a blade grinder or they're tossing around some pre-ground coffee, but we're not doing that now, are we? But then we can take out this bottom piece. Like, look at that. It's kind of gross. And then this piece of plastic on the bottom, which kind of gives you the split shot. You don't need to have all that stuff on the bottom if you have a proper basket. As you're making coffee, if you're using the stock Portafilter on any of these types of machines, be aware that you're gonna get residue that's gonna build up and get nasty, all right? It's gonna be like proper gross. Then of course, you have the tamper that comes with it. This is another tamper. You can get standard tampers. I also have this that I use with another machine. I would recommend getting an okay tamper, but it doesn't need to be that expensive. If you notice on here, we actually have something that looks like a pressure gauge. It's not, it's a temperature reader. But anyway, let's turn this on. Bang. When we click the button, here we go. Listen to that beautiful vibratory pump. Look at that little pre-infusion it gives you. That's kind of cute. All right, so let's go ahead and get this shot pulling. I have a really lightly roasted blend in here, and what we're gonna do is start the timer and the shot at the same time, so let's get this going. Now this won't be the prettiest shot because the way that we have that big hollow cavity inside, it's gonna kind of just spray out of these 2 nozzles, because it's also not very viscous being as light of a roast as it is. But here we go. Let's see how this first shot goes. Not looking too bad. A little slow, not terrible. It's definitely favoring one side, which is absolutely fine. That has nothing to do with channeling or anything. But here we go. Let's get it up to right about here. Now, since there's no solenoid valve, there's not going to be a release of pressure at the end, meaning whenever it's done, you need to let this sit for a bit before you pull it out. There's going to be latent pressure that still needs to release through the puck. That's why it continually dripped afterwards. There's still pressure that's disseminating. It wasn't released through that 3-way solenoid valve into like the drip tray, for instance, which is typically what kind of happens. After that solenoid's released, you get like a and you see water come through and it's depressurized up here. There's not one in this, which makes sense. It's very cheap. They're not going to do that. They do have an overpressure valve in here that recirculates into the water tank, so I'm not actually quite sure what the pump pressure is set at. We're using a nice grinder. We got good water in there. Those are two really good building blocks for solid espresso, so let's see. It's really not bad. That's pretty good. In fact, the way to test this is with the baddest mamma jamma around.
Wow. Wow.
We ain't playing no games, okay? You can make good Spro on a lot of stuff, you know? There's a massive screw in the center that's made of a cheap aluminum, and you'll see a ding out of the middle of it. And that's because if you're not using a flathead screwdriver that's big enough to release it, you can ding it up. It's really soft aluminum, it's crap. Above that, it has some holes because that's where the water is going through the screw and dispersing through the holes, almost like a flow restrictor. Above that is this weird spring that, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what it really does, but it's there. The water dispersion's not even. It's not coming through at a consistent temperature. It's going to wildly fluctuate as you look at the dial whenever the shot is pulling, but you get good beans. And as Daddy Hoff was saying, that P0 for 33 bucks. Bada bing, bada boom. I could take, for instance, my little Q2, which is like 80, 90 buck grinder. This is gonna make some delicious espresso because good grinder, good coffee, using proper water is gonna be the best way to approach kind of the limits of how good an espresso is going to taste for you. I just blew off Ugo's hair. Granted, he was bald before, but that's pretty impressive. Am I right? All right, let's make some milk drinks. It's not very controlled, all right? It's not what we want. It's not coming out of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 little tiny tips, little tiny spouts. It's one just monstrous vapor. It's not something that's pleasant, but it's something we can deal with. It's gonna judge us, but we're gonna end up controlling it and judging it. The number one thing when steaming milk on this is don't over froth. It's gonna look like it's frothing a lot. You don't wanna stretch a ton. You're gonna stretch some and it's just gonna add air on its own. It's a wild and crazy thing. You wanna try to encourage a swirl, but it may not happen, but you gotta just trust the process. Then at the end, we're gonna groom the absolute mess out of it. Now, you're like, what does that mean? Well, grab a spoon and grab a second pitcher and you're gonna see what I mean. All right, we've got the coffee all loaded up. Let's get the shot extracting on that thick shot for that nice contrast, you know what I'm saying? And in fact, because there's no solenoid, you could even do a bloom, an extra bloom. I can turn it off right now. There's still pressure in there because I want a little fine on the grind size, just a little fine. It's not a big deal. No one's gonna get hurt. We restart the pump just like that. It waned down and now look at that. We have a blooming shot and look at that flow now. All right, that's enough espresso for me. We're just messing around. I didn't feel like having to redial a dark roast. I don't know. But then we're gonna put our milk in there, get it up as high as we can. And then essentially we put it in the side as best as we can. And we're just gonna let it froth. We're gonna do this and we're trying to force it to like swirl a bit, but we don't wanna froth, we don't wanna like manually froth it too much. It's already gonna bubble up out of your house. And so instead of letting it fly away, like the Magical Mystery Tour, Magical Mystery Tour is coming to take you away. Coming to take you away, take you today. We're just gonna let it kind of sit here and it's going to do what it wants to do. I know it sounds very scientific. I mean, listen to that. It sounds like we're boiling milk. It takes a while. Finally, we're getting to our temperature that we need. And we're gonna turn it off. All right. Then we just wipe off all of that. And what we're left with is all these bubbles. We don't want those bubbles. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these bubbles and I'm just gonna go dump them in my mouth. You don't wanna waste milk. Then we're gonna transfer pitchers. This is gonna help us to integrate the bubbles, get rid of some of those bubbles, make sure the foam is nicely evenly dispersed. Then we're gonna take our crema, we're gonna swirl it a bit, we're gonna swirl our pitcher, knock out any bubbles that are left, and then watch. Then the magic occurs. We take our base, and then we start pouring. And just like that, we have incredibly silky, smooth, milky that came out of what looked like lava. It looked disgusting, and it was gurgling at you. Keep it out of the stash this time. perfection. Okay, you have something where you can depressurize the basket, use your own grinder, your own water, your own coffee. You're gonna be able to make something that's passable. Now the espresso that I made here, honestly, it was quite nice. Like we're not saying it was nice for 60 bucks. It was like a quite nice espresso, something I would be happy to be served in a cafe, and honestly better than I've been served in a lot of cafes. And it was made on this $60 machine. I'm not saying go buy this. This is not a great machine. It's not like that. As long as we're getting that hot water pumped out and it's not being wild and reckless with the temperature fluctuations, you know, you're gonna have a decent cup if you can dial it in properly. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed seeing that you can even make incredible masterpieces de résistance of art in your cheap espresso machine. I think we went over the SilverCrest in enough depth to last us an eternity, unlike this machine, which will not last more than just a couple of years in my opinion. But of course, that could be proved wrong. So if you have one that's lasted a long time, let me know. But if you're an engineer, I'm not gonna validate your opinion because you probably fixed it a lot. That is everything for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know below. If this is something you like to see where I take cheap equipment and show you its capabilities, let me know. Otherwise, I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Check out my Patreon down below. This is where we give away a lot of the stuff that I use in videos through competitions. I have my Instagram, my second YouTube, my Facebook, all that good stuff down below. I'm grateful for any support that you give in any of those forums, even just a like, a subscribe, a comment. Anyway, I think that's all. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you brew something tasty today. And cheers.